Hi. Today I want to address the question, are you a slave to the moment? Are you a slave of time? This question comes up in the context of reading Plato's Apology with my Introduction to Philosophy class. At the end of the Apology, I should say, the Apology is one of the dialogues of Plato, and if you've never read it, you should totally read it. But we were reading it in class and discussing it, and one of the questions that I asked the students was, what does Socrates want for his sons after his death? All right, and I'm going to read you the quote from Socrates. He's addressing the Athenians who are basically executing him. So here's what he asks them. He says, "This much I ask from them. When my sons grow up, avenge yourselves by causing them the same kind of grief that I caused you, if you think they care for money or anything else more than they care for virtue, or if they think they are somebody when they are nobody. Reproach them as I reproach you, that they do not care for the right things and that they are worthy when they are not worthy of anything." Okay, so we had this discussion about how Socrates valued the examined life as a means to knowing what is the good life, and that he wanted that for his sons as well. And so we talked about how he doesn't want his sons to pursue merely money or the things that are of no value. Money has value in a temporal sense. I mean, it's a means to getting something else, but it's not ultimate. And so I brought up another dialogue in our discussion, and that's the dialogue of the Theaetetus. And in this dialogue, Socrates contrasts the sophist with the philosopher, and the way of life of the philosopher with that of the sophist. And so I'm going to read a little paragraph, and it talks about the difference between being free and being a slave. So remember, the original question is, are you a slave of the moment, or are you a slave of time? Socrates says this: "The free man always has time at his disposal to converse in peace at his leisure. He will pass, as we are doing now, from one argument to another. Like us, he will leave the old for a fresh one, which takes his fancy more, and he does not care how long or how short the discussion may be, if only it attains the truth. The orator, or the sophist, is always talking against time, hurried on by the clock. There is no time to enlarge upon any subject he chooses, but the adversary stands over him, ready to recite a schedule of the points to which he must confine himself. He is a slave, disputing about a fellow slave before a master sitting in judgment." So think of the orator as like a politician or a lawyer. They're doing very practical things. Think about a lawyer having to give an argument in a certain time period. They've committed themselves to a certain way of life that is based upon the practical. Now, this is my book, incidentally, that I'm reading from. Here's what I say about this. Socrates describes the philosopher as a free man, a man of leisure, whereas the orator is a slave and is hurried. He has no time for discussion. Socrates contrasts the philosopher, who is concerned with knowing ultimate reality, with the orator, who is concerned with practical things such as politics or law, or meetings and dinners and merrymakings, as Socrates said. Meetings and dinners and merrymakings. This is the stuff that we kind of assume is the good life, right? The temporal, the now. And so we talked about this, and I suggested that in order to be a person who's concerned with wisdom, the love of wisdom, that we would have to take time to think. So thinking takes time, following an argument takes time, coming up with arguments takes time. And we can contrast this with the practical life that we're usually encouraged to live, the life of the sophist or the orator, pursuing money, and then we become slaves to the clock, so to speak. We're stuck in the moment. We don't live outside of this moment right now. So I want you to think about that. Are you a slave to the moment because of what you've committed yourself to? You don't have to be committed to that. You can say, you know what, I'd rather slow down, take time to think, and follow the good life as opposed to following the practical life. I want wisdom, and wisdom's going to take time. So I am addressing this question, are you a slave to the moment? Because I have a feeling that a lot of us are, and you don't have to be. You can follow the way that Socrates did. Of course you know how that ends up for him. If you don't, read the Apology. All right, so today we talked about the Apology, what happens when Socrates asks the Athenians to look out for his sons, and he thinks in this way that the Athenians will reward him even though they've killed him. And I mentioned the difference between the sophist, or the orator, and their practical life versus the philosopher and their free life. So freedom is in the ability to think and think critically and to find the truth and live in the truth. Okay, I will pause here. If you're liking these videos, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.